Hi there, I'm Jen Ferguson with Artistic Painting Studio, and today's project is going to be a large Christmas ornament showing you how to layer foils. I'm so excited about this project. This is going to be so much fun. This ornament, oh my gosh, I was going to measure first and I forgot. So we're about 18, probably around 28, 30 inches. Okay, so it's actually pretty good sized. I am going to prime and base coat with our Bondago Black. It's going to go with the foil colors that I have chose, and it's always a good primer to use. I'm just using a low nap uh, roller, okay, and I'm just going to roll this on because being that it's a nice large area, rolling on your paint is going to be way easier than trying to brush. So we're just going to go ahead and get 100% coverage on here. Okay, once we have the ornament painted, there's also this little topper to the ornament. So we're going to go ahead and get this base coated as well. And you will want to pick whatever color is going to work best with your foil choice color. So like I said, black I knew would work great with what I had in mind. So we're just base coating in black. Okay, we're gonna let this dry and then we're gonna come back and put our foil adhesive on. Our base coat is completely dry and we're ready for our next step, which is going to be our Artsyville Embellishments foil adhesive. And don't let the big container scare you. We have this in quite a bit smaller size. But I've already taken some out and just put it on what I call a sticky plate. So this is normally what I always work off of, whether I'm rolling, brushing, whatever I'm doing. And again, because we're on such a nice big surface, I just want to roll it on because it's going to be quicker and we can get just a nice, even stippled finish from the foil adhesive. So you want to make sure you have 100% coverage. And as you can see, it goes on milky white, but it will dry clear and shiny. So you want to make sure, okay, so I'm coming back now and I'm going all in one direction and kind of even lightening up my pressure of my roller, trying to just get a real soft stippled effect. I know I've got 100% coverage, and then we'll let that dry. We're going to do our top of our ornament as well, but you want to let this dry for no less than normally 30 minutes, allowing it to get to what we call a firm, hard tack. And even though it might go clear in about 15 minutes, go ahead and give it the extra time because normally you'll always get a better release from your foils. So let's have some dry time and we'll be back. Okay, it's time for the fun part. We're going to be transferring some foil, okay? So just a little bit about our metallic foils is the side you're looking at right now is considered the carrier side. The back side, that doesn't really have any color or pattern to it, is the transfer side. So we're going to cut a piece of this off, and I'm just going to get my sticky little ornament out of the way and cut off a section that I believe will be long enough to make it from top to bottom. And then I'm most likely going to have to come in and do what I call some seaming and finish off this area because this is going to be wider than my 12 inches. So I think I'm going to go from one side over and whoops, I'm going to try to cover as much as I can going across, okay? And then I like grabbing just a soft rag to start with and rubbing the foil into place, just smoothing it out. And I am going to stay short of that side because we're probably going to end up with a little bit of a seam there. So I want to show you guys how to seam that. And let's just rub this on. And I know you guys are probably thinking, wow, Jen, you're using aquamarine blue, which is such a light color over black. But you know what? Black seems to enhance most foils and not take away from them. And realize that your foils are never going to transfer 100%. So there's always going to be little bits and pieces that are going to peek through. You have to definitely do a test and see what you prefer, but I find that the black just kind of looks a little distressed and doesn't really take away. Now I'm just going to pull back because I want to peek here for a second and show you that we can see the outline of the ornament. We can see just rubbing it took a little bit of the foil off and transferred it, but it's definitely not to the degree I want. So we're going to use a plastic bristle scrub brush, okay, and these are pretty stiff. And I want to scrub all in one direction to begin with. Okay, once you have gone across, again, I want you to peek, okay? I want you to lift the carrier sheet, see what kind of transfer you have, and if you feel like you still want to try to get a little bit more, lay it back down because that foil is going to fall right back into place. And if there's any adhesive exposed, that foil, little bits of foil will be right there. So you can keep doing this and just critiquing it as you go. Keep pulling back because every time you release the foil, if you have texture, which we do from rolling with a foam roller a couple of times, we got the layer of paint and the layer of foil adhesive, we're going to have highs and lows. So when we release the foil and I put it back down, it allows the foil to go down into those lower spots. So I'm just going to change the direction because it's going to be a little easier to pull from this side. And again, keep peeking underneath, releasing that foil, and scrubbing again. Okay, so I feel like I have the coverage I'm looking for, and now we're going to seam, okay? So I'm going to try to use my leftover piece. I'm going to lay that over this section. Again, I'm going to grab my soft cloth and I want to rub together the two sections. Let's just cut some of this off because this is going to get in my way. Okay, so when you're overlapping, you're always going to have a little bit what we call salvage. And when you're overlapping, you now have foil transferring over foil. So we don't want to scrub really hard there with our scrub brush because we could scratch it because there's no adhesive exposed and that overlap to transfer the foil. So sometimes you can get what we call a little bit of a scratch. So I'm going to start short of that, okay? And try not to go over that line so we don't have any scratch marks, okay? So just be aware of that. Get a little bit more peeking back through here. And there we go. So we now have this beautiful ornament covered in the aquamarine. And yes, there's a tiny bit of black showing, but not unless you're up close and personal, you're not really going to see that. Now we're going to use a foil over a foil, but we're going to go ahead and transfer the other foil to the top of the ornament. And this time I'm going to be using our leopard blue, okay? And this leopard blue is kind of multicolored where it picks up that aquamarine so beautifully, okay? So I know this is not your traditional probably choice for a Christmas ornament, but you can definitely pick whatever foil you would like, but I'm going to show you guys a technique. So we're just going to get the top of the ornament transferred here, just because this is going to be my foil that I'm going to use with a stencil. looking amazing. Okay, that transferred so pretty. And let's scrub again just a little bit. I always like scrubbing twice. I feel like I just get a little bit more coverage that way. So this is going to get attached to our ornament right there. But what we're going to do now is, because I want to do a stencil over the top of this, and we're going to stencil with our foil adhesive, we have to protect the foil. We don't want the design to transfer anywhere but where we put the next layer of adhesive. So it's always best to protect this layer. And we're going to use our final coat in semi-gloss because I want to keep this bright and shiny. And I'll show you guys how to put this on. Final coat was actually designed to be what we call a wipe-on varnish, which is really cool when you have such a large surface. So I like to use our microfiber sponge pads. Okay, I guess it's just referred to as a pad. And how I load it is just to take the lid off of the jar, put the sponge directly over, okay, and then tip it. But I'm not moving the two apart at any point in time, okay? And just kind of moving the jar around to a couple different spots until I get enough of the final coat on the sponge to just wipe it onto the surface. It's meant to go on super thin. It's not meant to be on heavy. And it goes on so thin that it'll be dry in like 10 minutes, okay? Which is really fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the top of the ornament while I have this out, okay? And the other thing is, no matter what top coat you use, they're all gonna slightly affect the sheen of your foil. So you might wanna test what you have and make sure that it is okay with the foils. Most water-based products will work. So I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna wipe on 2 or 3 coats, and then we're gonna come back for some fun stenciling. We are ready to start our stenciling and layer this project, okay? So remember, I put a couple of good coats of the final coat to seal this and let it dry well. And now I'm gonna use the Nora Page stencil, and we have this design in a couple of different sizes. This is the large version of it. So I'm going to position this on here to get the maximum amount of print that I can get. Kept figuring out what was grabbing it. I already had tape rolled underneath there, okay? One of my little tricks I was going to show you. And the reason why I'm not going all the way up to the top is because, remember, we have that little top of the ornament that's going to go over this, and that will cover that area, so there's no reason to even bother with having to stencil that, okay? We are going to end up being short on this end, which means we're just going to have to line the stencil up and repeat it. And we're going to go ahead and tape this into position. I like using my blue painter's tape because it is lower tack and safer for your painted and foiled surfaces. And because we're only able to tape it top and bottom, if you feel by any chance that things could move on you, you can just loop a piece of tape, put it underneath any place where it's just the Mylar, and that way at least that part will also stay in position. We are going to be using the foil adhesive. Again, let me just show you. This is our smaller jar. It is the same stuff, the Artsyville Embellishments foil adhesive. And I put it out onto a sticky plate once again. And I'm going to kind of just move things down here a bit so that you can see where I'm loading and offloading as well, okay? My stencil is already sticky, so I can't really set anything else on it. But I'm using a traditional stencil brush. And I've got some paper towels that I've just folded in half, and you still want to do what is called dry brushing technique. So I'm only picking up a little bit of the product, moving it over to a cleaner section of the plate, and just using a circular motion to work it in. We don't want to dump our brush in there and get a whole bunch of product because there's nothing really to prevent it from seeping underneath. You still have a stencil, okay? So once you've loaded it on, you're just going to pounce it over the openings. And what it's going to do is make it look a little bit more matte finished. Well, it's wet, so you'll be able to see where you've already pounced, okay? And keep an eye on the design, because I have a tendency to try to go from one side to the other so that I can not miss any of the openings. Okay, now I have not been brushing off, but if you feel that you're adding too much, or if you do a quick little peek and reveal and find that you've got some edges that are starting to bleed, then you want to make sure you're picking up either less or you're pouncing off on the paper towel first, okay? And because this is a small amount, okay, we're not getting on our normal amount of foil adhesive by brushing or rolling, because it's going to go on thinner, being just pounced through the openings. That I will go over this twice, okay? So I'm going to go from top to bottom, and before I move my stencil, I'm going to go ahead and repeat another layer. So we're going to probably speed this up a little bit, but I just wanted to tell you what the process was. Okay, once you've made it all the way across the stencil, then go ahead and untape one edge, okay, and lift, because I want you just to make sure that you have made it through all of the openings, because you're going to be able to see the sheen difference that the foil adhesive is giving, okay? And then go ahead and just put it back down and do a second repeat, okay? I just know that with the stuff that I have done, if I've only put one layer of the foil adhesive with the stenciling technique, it just doesn't seem to be enough, okay? And like I said, you can't get any more heavier handed with this, because then you would end up bleeding underneath. So again, just load a small amount on and go over the entire stencil again. I feel like I have carefully made it across here twice. A couple other things. If you find that the adhesive is building on the edge of your brush, just make sure you wipe that off as well. And then also, I did choose a 1-inch stencil brush, which in general is, I think, too large for the openings. But because all we're doing is just pouncing the foil adhesive over the openings, I didn't need a brush for shading techniques, okay? So I'm just going to move this up. We're going to remove our stencil and make sure it's well covered. And then I'm going to reposition down here at the bottom, lining up the sections that I've already done. Okay, and I don't want to tape directly over that area. So I'm going to use some small little pieces of tape and make sure I'm taping only to where there is no foil adhesive, so I'm not taping over what I just did. And then I'll use my little looped piece to hold in better position down here at the bottom, okay? And once again, trying to keep this on the focus of the camera, but there's not enough room here, okay? Once again, you are going to stencil over this with the foil adhesive, pouncing, and do the 2 layers. And the reason why I'm building that double layer of adhesive is because to transfer our foils to their best of ability and give them the best release, the foil adhesive has to dry to a nice, firm, hard tack. And if we have it on too thin, it just can't get to that ability. So that's why I'm doing the 2 layers. Okay, I feel like we've been super successful on getting this stenciled, and you should be able to see the design on the camera, okay, because it should reflect the pattern. But this is going to be absolutely gorgeous. You can see that beautiful stencil design on there. We're going to let this dry for probably about an hour. Again, because we're working with just a stencil design, I kind of like to let things dry a little bit longer and make sure I'm going to get a better release. So we'll be back when this is dry. The foil adhesive has dried for at least an hour or better, and it really is great advice, you guys. The longer you let that stuff dry, the better it's going to be. Okay, so we're back to my favorite leopard and blue, and this blue has multicolors, so it has like the blue and the aqua together, which I think just looks stunning. Okay, we're going to do our best to cover the majority of this to start with. And trying to get it to stop there. There we go. I'm going to cut off the excess because I just grabbed a big piece so that I could cover everything. I'm going to go ahead and rub it into place. And I don't know if the camera will show it, but it definitely grabs the foil adhesive. So you'll be able to see the whole design kind of telegraphing through, which is really cool. And then you can just even rub to start with, lift it up, just see how the transfer is working to begin with. And normally rubbing's not going to give you the best transfer. You're gonna have to get in here and scrub. So I'm gonna grab my little plastic scrub brush, okay? And we're gonna give it a try. Now, another thing that I want you guys to just kind of be aware of, depending on how rough or smooth your wood is to start with, sometimes you'll have things that will transfer better because of that as well, okay? So don't feel that if you're not getting a perfect transfer on everything, it has a lot to do with the texture. Because I know that this piece was rougher than I really had thought, and some of the spots that are really rough are just not transferring as well. So what you can do is, I'm going to try this, I want to say it's like kind of a little scrub pad. Not sure exactly what the name is, but any kind of like a little scrub pad that has texture to it. Sometimes you can just rub even with this because we're just got detail that we're trying to pop a little bit more. And you can see how, again, scrubbing is going to help. So always lay that foil back. Give yourself a little bit more scrubbing and play between a stiff bristled scrub brush, a little scrubbing pad. I call it like a burnishing pad. These two are going to give you your best results, okay? So I'm going to do a good scrubbing over everything here and then keep peeling back and revealing and seeing how well it's transferred. If I want to get it a little bit more, I'm going to try my burnishing pad. Because as well as I was telling you on the first layer, when you pull the foil back, it has the ability to lay into the lower areas because everything that is higher with all the different texture we got going here, all the high points are going to grab your foil first, and then it's got to be able to lay down to the lower section. So pulling the foil back, rubbing again in that spot will normally always give you a little bit more transfer. And this is turning out so pretty, okay? So just always go back anywhere where you think you want to just try to pop that color a little bit more and give it a little scrub, okay? So you can keep going back and forth and back and forth. And that's why I only pull the sheet so far back and don't just pull it completely off, because it's going to fall right back into the place that you might need to scrub again, okay? Okay, I think we're on the bottom section here now. And I'm going to go the other way. So I'm going to slide down a little bit. And we're just going to go from the bottom up using my burnishing pad as well. Okay, just found one little spot that I want to try to get some on there. And then our last section that we're going to have here is just going to be this side. So I'm going to use some of the extra left over from the narrower section, okay? Rub it on there and then rub with my little pad. So you just have to figure out what works best for you. Some foils release so easy and some just take a little bit more scrubbing to encourage them, okay? But in the end, we still get a absolutely beautiful finish here. Woohoo, how fun. Okay, so I'm going to put my foil aside. The next thing that we need to do to this is to go ahead and add our final coat again, because we got another layer of foil that we need to protect. Your foils can scratch if you don't protect them. And plus we want this to be able to be a door hanger. So I'm going to put a final coat on here, and then I'm going to come back with our Modern Masters as well, because the Modern Masters is our exterior product that also has UV. So I'm going to layer this over the top of it. Again, this is for the exterior protection. Once everything is dry and covered, the last thing we have to do is just glue on the top of our ornament, and then you can leave it as is or even add a beautiful bow to enhance it. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this fun tutorial. A complete list of all materials and supplies will be found in the description below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.